Hey guys, it's Marty and welcome to Two Line Slot Cars. Last week I posted a video about basic tuning of a FLy slot car, and I got a lot of feedback asking about fixing the front end of the independent chassis. So FLy cars, when you open them up, you just really never know what you're going to get. Sometimes there's a straight axle, sometimes there's independent with these little stub axles. And so we're going to jump in and talk about how to fix the front end, sort of like last week, only instead of putting a straight axle in, we're going to fix the stub axles. So guys, I've got a handful of FLy cars on the desk, and we're going to talk about each one and what I've done to fix the front end. We will end by fixing the independent fronts. So let's dig in. So here on the desktop, we have the M1, which we fixed last week. And what we did with the M1 was put a piece of 1/8 inch brass and created really an axle, a way to hold the axle. So this car was already a straight axle, front axle, but it had a ton of slop. And so I used the 1/8 inch brass tube, glued it in, and you can see that it works really, really well. And it really changed the performance of the M1. I mean, it really helped it. I mean, it took over a second off the top end. This is a Flunder, a 908 Flunder. This Flunder, basically, we just put a straight axle in it. So it was independence. And what I did was I used and cut an axle to fit. And then I took my 3/32 drill bit and just made sure that the axle spun freely. And so I just widened the axle holder, pulled the stub. So this is what the stub axle looks like. It slides through this little section here, and then the tire snaps on it. Okay? Pretty simple concept. I basically drilled those out to fit a 3/32 axle and put just a regular axle in. That was a very easy fix. It really was not complicated. And my Flunder runs great. I tuned that a little over a year ago, and it's held up really well. This 908, we'll take a look at it. It has the stub axles, so you can see how they're independent. And this car ran so good that I never messed with it. And you can see there's not a lot of slop in these, and they roll really well. Now, I've never trued these fronts. They're sort of difficult to true, so I just polished them. You can see they're kind of shiny. Work really well. There's not a lot of play in them, so I left them alone. That was a high-quality front end from FLy. But we'll go to the 917 Spider. This is an independent front suspension, and look at those. Those are a mess. Okay? And so this is what we're going to tackle. And so what we're going to do is we'll take the front end apart. So you'll pop off the tire, and then you'll slide the stub axle out. And there's what you're looking at. There's your axle. It's plastic. Nothing too fancy. Now what we want to do is take a piece of 1/8 inch brass, and we want to cut a piece of brass that is the same width as this hub right here. Okay, so if we measure that out, that hub is 5.40 millimeters. Okay, so what we want to do is cut a piece of brass, 1/8 inch tubing, at 5.40 millimeters. And then what we'll do is slide that over the axle, push it back in, and that will clean up all the slop that's in here. Now, this is close to 3/32. And so what we'll have to do is, before we can make the brass insert fit, we will need to drill this out. Now, I like to do this by hand because I don't want to do any damage. So I've got a couple drill bits that I'll use, and I just turn it by hand. Until I can get it through there, so I don't do any damage to the chassis. And there you go. Okay, So this is like 7/64. Okay. And so then I'll move up to a 1/8 inch drill bit, and then now we'll drill this out. Now, be patient. You got to cut through some plastic. You can see that it's cutting, but nice and slow so you can keep it straight with a little bit of patience. If you need to back it out, take that plastic out that it's already cut through. Again, you could use your drill, but I always worry about just getting a little overzealous with the drill, right? So just some patience. Turn the chassis, and we're through. And now we will make sure that that is really good and smooth. Those sharp edges, and we're ready. We want to cut a piece of brass. So I will mark this so I know how much to cut. So I've got my little mark, as you can see. I will cut it with my roto tool. Okay, now we have cut our piece of brass. I use the 3/32 drill bit to clean out the inside. So I'll just clean that out with that drill bit so it's nice and smooth on the inside. And then I'll take I get a little piece of sandpaper. And what I like to do is flip that drill bit over so it's a little easier to hold. And then I'll sand this flat and take all the sharp edges off. And I'll flip it over and just make sure that there are no burrs, nothing to get in the way. So now you'll see we will slide that piece of brass right on to the axle. So now we will install that. Slide this in. Till it's a snug fit. Okay. The axle is in. Focus on that. And then we will snap the wheel on to the axle. And now we have an independent front stub axle that is solid as a rock. You've eliminated all the slop. And so then we'll take a little bit of oil and we will oil this. And now it's ready for the track. So there you have it, fixing the front end of a stub axle FLy classic car. Now, I don't know what all models have the stub axles, the independent stub axles, but this trick should work for all of them. There are some people that like the independent wheels, the tires, to spin independently from each other. I think it really helps on a wood track. I'm not so sure that it helps that much on a plastic track. That's how you do it. It doesn't have to be the only way. You can put a regular axle in, like I did on the Flunder. Or you can use the brass tube to create an axle guide for the chassis. There's really no wrong way to do this, but this is one of many ways that you can clean up the slop on the front of a FLy classic slot car. I've seen this in other videos. I'm not the person that invented this. I've just used resources that are out there from Home Racing World. My friend Daryl my friend John Albright. These guys have really poured into me. Steve Holzman, on how to tune cars and how to make improvements. And I just want to share that information with you. They shared it with me, and it's helped me make my fly cars super enjoyable to race. I love to race in the fly class. It was one of my favorite race classes of the whole season this year. And it's because the cars just look fantastic. I mean, if you're an M1 fan, I mean, come on. That is a great looking car. And classic cars, I don't know that anybody does a better body than Fly when it comes to classic cars. I mean, look at that. Flunder 908. That is such a cool car. All right. And then you might get lucky like I did with this 908 and not have to do anything with the front end. But after I see the performance increase in the M1, I think I'm going to tear into that 908 and fix that front end. Even though it doesn't really have any slop, I'd like for it to spin a little better. So maybe we'll tackle that in the next video. But guys, if you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, hit the bell so you get notified anytime I put out new content. Thanks for tuning in this week. I hope this one tidbit on how to fix the front end of a Fly Classic car really helps you. So get those Fly cars out, get them tuned up. They are a blast. And guys, go have fun racing.